In 1999, 27 seniors boarded a school bus for one final trip before adulthood. They were never seen again. For 22 years, their disappearance became legend until a hiker found a rusted bus deep in the Oregon woods, and what he discovered inside would unravel a mystery darker than anyone imagined. The year was 1999. The world was preparing for a new millennium, but in the quiet town of Graybridge, Oregon, all eyes were on one thing: graduation. The senior class of Graybridge High was close like family. They'd grown up together, played on the same teams, been in the same awkward school plays, and survived the same cafeteria food. That year, to celebrate the end of an era, the school organized a graduation trip, a weekend getaway in the Cascade Mountains. 27 students, 2 teachers, and 1 school bus departed the parking lot on June 3, 1999. They were never seen again. No tire marks, no signal, no goodbye texts, just gone. For months, helicopters searched, dogs sniffed every ridge. Conspiracy theories spread. The forest was combed. Locals whispered about the Devil's Fork, a stretch of woods rumored to be cursed. But eventually, time did what it always does. It buried the missing under layers of silence. Parents held onto photos and fading hope. The school left 27 chairs empty at the next graduation, and Graybridge itself slowly became a ghost town of memory. But then, 22 years later, a hiker named Jonah Kellerman got lost in a storm while backpacking along a disused trail near Devil's Fork. He stumbled into a thicket of trees no GPS recognized and saw something impossible. A yellow school bus rusted, half buried in the earth like it had been swallowed and spit out. Vines wrapped its frame, moss grew across its shattered windows. Inside, bones, some human, some not. Jonah took photos, coordinates, and ran. When authorities returned, the bus was still there, silent, still, like a tomb. Inside, they found 14 skulls, all estimated to be late teens or early 20s. School IDs scattered across the floor confirmed this was the Graybridge class of '99. But that was only half the class. Where were the rest? Why was the bus hidden miles off any known road? And why were the student remains mixed with animal skeletons, deer birds, and one that couldn't be identified? Detective Helen Mars, who was only a rookie when the class vanished, was called out of retirement to lead the reopened investigation. She'd spent most of her career haunted by the unsolved case. Now she had something, finally. The forensics team uncovered more than just bones. They found journals, water-damaged but legible. One entry dated June 5th, 1999, 2 days after the disappearance, read, "We're not alone out here. Something's watching us from the trees. No one sleeps anymore. Mr. Lewis is gone, just walked into the woods and never came back." The page was signed Daniel Cray, student body president, star quarterback, and still missing. Helen studied the journals obsessively. Each day brought new fragments, mentions of chanting at night, trees that moved, dreams that infected the whole class. By the end, the students had turned on each other. One entry read, "We locked the doors. We thought that would keep it out, but it's not out there anymore." Another scrawled in shaky handwriting, "We shouldn't have taken the shortcut." That was the key. The route they were supposed to take, Route 14, had been blocked due to road work. But a dirt road once used by logging companies cut directly through Devil's Fork. No GPS, no cell towers, no way back. Helen tracked down archived maps and found the logging road on a 1972 document. On it, a handwritten warning, "Unsafe. Land risk, abandoned." But that wasn't all. She found something else. A photo. Faded. Torn. Showing 5 students. Alive. Standing in front of the bus. Their faces pale, sunken, wild-eyed. The date stamped June 12, 1999. That was 9 days after they vanished. No one should have been alive. One girl in the photo, Carolyn Valedictorian, had been presumed dead. But now her DNA wasn't among the bones, and her Facebook profile, last updated in 2012, had just gone active again. Detective Helen Mars stared at the screen. The Facebook activity was real. Carolyn's profile, silent for a decade, had just liked a photo of Mount Jefferson posted by a local Oregon hiking group. The photo had no geotag, no caption. Just a panoramic shot of a familiar mountain, one located within 30 miles of Devil's Fork. Helen dug deeper. Kara's last known online post was dated 2012. A photo of a hand-drawn map. Crude lines. no labels. A red X marked near what looked like a cave. Back then it was dismissed as a student prank. Now it looked like a warning. Helen traced the IP address linked to the Facebook action. The source was hidden behind a VPN, but the location pinged a nearby ranger station abandoned since 2005. She packed up and drove out with a forensic tech and 2 officers. The ranger station was moldy, forgotten its wooden porch, half-eaten by rot. Inside, they found dust graffiti, a pile of empty water bottles, and an old Polaroid wedged under a floorboard. It showed 2 teenagers' emaciated eyes hollow. One of them was unmistakably Kara. The other was Daniel Cray, still alive. Helen sent the photo to facial recognition software. The scan came back with 93% confidence. A hit. Daniel Cray had resurfaced in Canada in 2006 under a different name. Noah Reed. Worked in a logging camp for 4 months. Quit. Disappeared again. And just 2 months ago, someone matching his description had applied for a hiking permit using a fake ID near the Deschutes National Forest, roughly 60 miles from Devil's Fork. Helen had no doubt. Some of them were still out there. But the question wasn't just how, it was why they never came back. Back in town, whispers spread like wildfire. Local news picked up the story. Candlelight vigils reignited. Parents who had buried empty caskets now wondered had their children survived all along. One father, Malcolm Lynn, nearly collapsed when Helen showed him the Polaroid. "My baby, she's alive." Helen couldn't promise that. Not yet. But one thing was clear, the case was no longer about recovery. It was about discovery. The task force expanded. Drone sweeps were organized. Deep forest thermal scans were ordered. But Devil's Fork resisted. Machines malfunctioned. GPS devices looped back on themselves. Helicopter footage showed trees, endless trees, but never the bus. Not again. It was as if the forest had swallowed the evidence the moment they found it. But Helen wasn't done. She returned to the site alone. She stood by the rusted frame of the bus. She touched the cracked paint. She whispered into the trees. "If you're alive, I need you to come back. Tell me what happened." The wind responded low and steady. And then, something moved. A blur. Between the trees, a figure. Helen raised her flashlight and followed, heart pounding, through brush over logs deeper than any trail allowed. And then she found it. A clearing. Circular, silent. In the center, stones arranged in a spiral. Bones embedded between them. Not human. Not fully animal either. Twisted. Wrong. And beside the spiral, carved into a tree, 3 words. "They chose us." Helen backed away, breath sharp. Something about the spiral, the smell of the air, the humming. She turned and froze. A man stood at the edge of the clearing. Thin, dirty, eyes sunk deep into his skull. He looked like a ghost, but his voice was steady. "You're not supposed to be here." Helen raised her badge. "Daniel." He stared, then smiled slowly. "You're early." Daniel stood beneath the trees like he had grown from them. His skin was pallid, weathered, his hair streaked with gray. He looked older than he should have, not just in years, something deeper. Helen didn't move. Her hand hovered near her sidearm. "Where's Kara?" she asked. Daniel smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "She's with the forest now." "What does that mean?" He turned, gestured for her to follow. "You'll see. If you really want to understand, you have to hear it all." They walked in silence, the only sound the soft crunch of leaves beneath their feet. "I was 17, Daniel began. Graduation weekend. We were excited, carefree. The teachers were half drunk. We took a dirt road to save time. It wasn't on any map, but one of the guys said his uncle used it back in the 80s. They had entered the Devil's Fork without knowing. The road narrowed. The bus jolted like something had shifted underneath. Then the engine died. We thought it was just bad luck. Cell phones didn't work. No signal. So we set up camp." He paused beneath a tree with thick vines. His voice dropped. "That night we heard singing. Not music. Voices. Far away. In a language we didn't understand. Some thought it was just wind. Others, like Kara, said it was calling." Helen's pulse quickened. "We stayed close to the bus. But one by one, people started wandering off. First the teachers, then 2 students. They'd walk straight into the woods like they were sleepwalking." She interrupted. "And you didn't stop them." "We tried. But anyone who tried to stop them started hearing it too." Daniel turned toward her now. "That's when we realized it wasn't the forest trying to trap us. It was choosing." "Choosing what?" He crouched, brushed away leaves to reveal a charred mark burned into the earth concentric circles, like the spiral from the clearing. The forest feeds on loss, on stories. It doesn't kill unless it has to. It offers. And if you accept... He looked up. You live! Helen shook her head. You're talking like it's alive. It is. Daniel stood again. It gives you visions, makes you relive your worst regrets. If you face them, you get stronger. But if you run... He didn't finish. What about the rest of the class, she asked. His eyes dimmed. Most didn't make it. Some ran until they fell. Others gave into it, became part of it. And you, Kara? We stayed, we listened, we gave something up. Helen's voice was sharp now. What did you give? Daniel hesitated. Our names, our histories. You live, but not as yourself. You forget, just enough. She stared at him. So why did Kara's profile activate? Why now? He reached into his coat and pulled out a small notebook. She remembered. A piece of it. A place. A face. Maybe you. Helen took the notebook. Inside were sketches, places in the forest, faces with no names, and one symbol drawn over and over the spiral. We need to bring her back, she said. She still has family. Her mother is... She can't leave now, he interrupted. She's woven into it. But Helen had already turned to leave. Then I'll find her myself. That night, Helen returned to the clearing. She followed the spiral, whispered Kara's name. Nothing. Then from behind the trees movement, a girl stepped into view. Her face pale hair, long eyes distant. Kara. The girl blinked. Who's asking? Helen's breath caught. It was her, but younger than she should be, barely aged. I'm Helen. I was a rookie when you disappeared. I've been looking for you. Kara tilted her head. Why? Because you matter. You still have people waiting. Kara looked past her into the woods. I've had dreams, she said quietly. Dreams of roads, classrooms, my mom's perfume. But they fade when I wake. You're awake now, Helen said. Come home. Kara stepped forward and the woods groaned. A wind surged, circling them, carrying whispers not made by mouths. Kara clutched her head. It won't let me go. Helen grabbed her shoulders. Then we don't ask, we take you. Kara smiled sadly. It's not that simple. The others, they watch. She pointed to the trees, and suddenly Helen saw them. Eyes, dozens, in the darkness, watching. Not animals, not human. Remnants. Of the class, of the forest's price. Helen turned to Kara, her voice steady. Then we finish what was started. We break the story. Kara hesitated, then nodded. Okay. The journey out wasn't easy. Every turn looked the same. Every tree seemed to whisper doubts. Kara began to forget why she was even leaving until Helen gripped her hand and repeated, You're real. Your name is Kara Lynn. You're 39 years old. Your mother's name is Eliza. Like a mantra, Kara repeated it through trembling lips, over and over as if clinging to an anchor thrown across time. When they finally broke the tree line, the sun hit Kara's face like fire. She winced. Her skin was pale, too pale. Her muscles atrophied from decades of malnourishment. But her heart still beat. A rescue team called in earlier by Helen's silent GPS beacon rushed them with stretchers. Cameras clicked. Paramedics swarmed. But Helen didn't let go of her hand until they were both loaded into the medevac. That night, news broke across the nation. Missing girl from 1999. Graduation trip found alive after 22 years. Devil's Fork yields. Chilling discovery as woman emerges from woods. The class that vanished. A survivor returns. Eliza Lynn collapsed at the hospital when she saw her daughter. Kara couldn't speak at first. Couldn't even cry. She just stared as if seeing the world for the first time through unfiltered eyes. Doctors ran endless tests. Kara's biology was bizarre. Her vitals were sluggish, like she'd been in a hibernated state. She showed signs of memory fragmentation, low metabolism, and even cellular anomalies in her blood. Small things. But strange. The media called it forest stasis. Others supernatural trauma. But when Helen was cleared to visit her, Kara asked just one question. Did Daniel make it out? Helen hesitated. Not yet. Kara nodded slowly. He was the one who held the line. He stayed so I could remember. Helen sat beside her. You weren't the only one who heard them, were you? Kara looked toward the window. Some of them became something else. They fed the forest. Some gave up. but some stayed to warn the next ones. The investigation widened. A special task force was assigned to monitor Devil's Fork. Environmental scans showed radiation anomalies, time inconsistencies, weather distortions. No official explanation could be given. Public interest exploded. Documentaries were greenlit. Podcasts dissected every entry in Daniel's notebook. Online sleuths mapped the spiral symbols to ancient rites' old Native American warnings, even Cold War-era government testing zones. But nothing added up, and maybe that was the point. Some truths aren't meant to be solved, only witnessed. In Graybridge, the high school held a memorial, not a funeral. A circle of lanterns was lit for each of the 27 students. Kara attended in a wheelchair. Her body trembled, but her eyes were strong. She took the mic. I don't remember everything she said, but I remember the fear, the silence, and the love we had for each other before it all happened. She paused. I'm not the only one who made it. Some are still there. Not because they're trapped, but because they're protecting the path for the next person who loses their way. She pointed toward the hills. If you hear them whispering, don't be afraid. But don't follow either. The crowd stood in silence. Weeks later, Helen returned to the clearing one last time. She brought with her a photograph of the original class, smiling, goofy, full of promise. She placed it between two trees. Then she walked until she reached the spiral. It was still there, but something had changed. At the center, where once sat a stone, now rested a ring. Daniel's. With a note written in uneven block letters, she made it. That's all that matters. Helen picked it up. And for the first time in 22 years, she wept. Helen never returned to Devil's Fork again. Some places don't need to be solved. They just need to be remembered. Kara slowly rebuilt her life. Therapy helped. Time helped more. But what healed her most was speaking. She wrote a memoir called The Spiral, not to tell all, but to tell enough. She dedicated it to her classmates, all of them, to those who made it out, to those who never could, and to those who chose to stay behind so someone else could live. Her story wasn't just about survival. It was about choices, memory, and what it means to come back changed. If this story gripped your heart, stirred your curiosity, or made you wonder how far you'd go for the truth, don't let it end here. Share your thoughts below. What part of this mystery stayed with you the most? Like this video to honor the voices that took decades to be heard. Subscribe to Tim's Stories for more real-life narratives that blend truth, emotion, and the unseen. Turn on notifications because the next story might rewrite everything you thought you knew.